for the third dimension of horror as advertised by this poster. And I'm not sure if the horror is in the actual suspense or in the effects. Just when you thought it was safe to go back into the water, again, this is 1983's Jaws 3D. The classic stinger and a starfield? Holy shit, is Jaws going into space? Nope, it's just the Universal logo. Jaws is still under the water with rocks and coral and this ugly fish. Oh shit! Oh god, he's still moving. His dead eyes looking directly into my soul. And now I'm bored. Moving on. After a bitey 3D title, Dennis Quaid, Bess Armstrong, and Louis Gossett Jr. as
Calvin Bouchard
are introduced to us in 3D! I love that this movie was suggested by the Peter Benchley novel instead of based on. Is that supposed to mean something specific, or were they just being saucy? We get a ton of legs on the water, which turns to a lot of legs in the water. Seems like there might be something coming. Oh, never mind. False alarm. You got me, movie. Elsewhere.
Show any cheek and you'll be back shoveling french fries.
If I had a nickel for every time I heard that, I'd have about 15 cents. We meet up with Mike Brody, who I'm pretty sure is secretly jealous of all the attention Shamu is getting.
What am I gonna lose? There's a couple of neurotic fish. Mammals.
In fact, he might just be jealous of all water-based mammals. If you ever want to guess which character is probably gonna die in a particularly interesting way in an 80s movie, a good rule of thumb is to watch for an ascot, swarmy attitude, or this style of hat. This guy has the trifecta, and he's definitely going out with a bang. You know, my mom warned me never to dive at sunset unless you want big trouble. Give this guy a hand, as he proved my point. Later, we're introduced to Leah Thompson in her film debut, where she gets into an interesting bar game that ends with...
My fly's open.
She tries to have a moment with Sean Brody, but gets cock-blocked by his brother's drunken antics. Elsewhere, thieves blow a raft. And unexpectedly, we're treated to a classic MST3K line.
Watch out, snakes.
The next morning, Mike shows himself to be a real gentleman, as he holds back this dog's ears after a night of drinking. There's some adorable couple banter.
I'll talk to you later.
All right, I'll have my beeper, beeper, beeper.
I'll have my beeper back.
And these two go out in a yellow submarine to find a missing employee. Unfortunately, all they find is Oscar, the resident jump scare skeleton, which preludes an actual jump scare in the form of a great white shark. But the resident Deus Ex Machina dolphins get them to safety. Despite this, the whole experience leaves Mike with some pretty impressive pit stains. Later, a damning insult, at least by marine biologist standards, is dropped.
Color of your wetsuit's one hell of a choice. The shark's gonna love you.
And we get action in 3D! Well, shit. It looks like they forgot to remove the behind-the-scenes shot of the crew blowing up that life-size shark prop. Luckily, this mermaid with bedhead takes us to better things, and we get a shot that reminds us why 3D was so popular in the 80s. Having been to SeaWorld, I can definitely say not having a cheesy underwater haunted house is a missed opportunity, as is the potential jump scare of looking out one porthole and seeing fish, looking out a second porthole to see more fish, then looking out a third porthole to see a decomposing former employee. I'm not sure if that's more or less scary than the anthropomorphic Shamu.
Welcome to the opening of the Undersea Kingdom.
The corpse gets an up-close and personal look, and you know, he doesn't look great. But I'd say he definitely looks worse in 3D. Elsewhere, Sean tries to have a moment with Kellyanne, but gets cock-blocked by a bumper boat. After confirming this is a giant-ass shark,
With a bite radius about a yard across.
Don't be silly. Indicate a shark of some 35 feet in length.
Mike tries not to cause a panic by causing a massive panic. I'm thinking Jaws isn't a fan of ski shows, or at least the attire, cause she takes them down in quick succession. And word to the wise, if you ever hear an announcement like this,
Due to technical difficulties, it becomes necessary for us to temporarily close the Undersea Kingdom. Now, for those of y'all who are still in the underwater portion of this park, please follow your guides, and they will point out the most convenient and accessible exits.
you can basically kiss your ass goodbye. Elsewhere, Sean tries to have another moment with Kellyanne, but Jaws cock-blocks them. I feel like the fates are against these two getting it on. The swarmy photographer from earlier reappears and tries to take down the shark for fame and fortune. But he just ends up being a reminder that sharks will eat anything. Jaws gets distracted by shiny things, ramming the undersea command center at a surprisingly safe speed.
Whoops! Wrong clip.
But still manages to break the glass in a very three-dimensional way. She gets trapped cause she's a tad chunky. Unfortunately, her recent meal pops up and makes things worse with an easily accessible grenade. If you learn nothing else in this movie, remember that chewing your food thoroughly may save your life. Jaws goes to pieces in spectacular 3D fashion and leaves us with this charming freeze frame. Jaws 3 was originally pitched as a spoof titled National Lampoon's Jaws 3 People Zero. It featured author Peter Benchley being eaten in his pool and shark-costumed aliens. Joe Dante was pursued to be the director, but the studio shut down the idea. They decided on the much more distinguished direction of 3D. Apparently there was also a plan to have a great white swim upstream and get trapped in the lake, which you can see traces of in the final story. The movie ups the sequel ante in some strange ways. For instance, mentioning the shark being 35 feet long, which was an increase of 10 feet over the shark's given length in the previous films. I'm not sure if it's compensating for a small plot, or just upping the stakes as a good sequel does. It also shares a similar plot to The Creature from the Black Lagoon sequel, Revenge of the Creature. It was jokingly referred to by film critic Leonard Maltin as an unofficial remake of that movie. Jaws 3 was the first sequel to be nominated for a Worst Picture Razzie, as well as supporting actor for Louis Gossett Jr., screenplay, and newcomers for Cindy and Sandy, the Shrieking Dolphins. Despite the negative reviews, it was a commercial success and held the record for the highest grossing open for a 3D film until Spy Kids 3D in 2003. And there wouldn't be another fictional full-length 3D shark movie until 2011's Shark Night. Weirdly, over the course of 2 years, there were 3 80s movies that were both 3D and the third in their respective franchises. Jaws 3D, Amityville 3D, and Friday the 13th Part 3.
Coincidence? I think not!
Anyway, Jaws 3 definitely earned its D, with random shots meant to make you go, "Oh, I can almost touch that severed arm, fish head, or devil statue." When the shark explodes at the end, some of the entrails that fly out of the screen are actually parts of a leather ET doll, and I'm really not sure what to make of this. The film was also shown in 2D with the name revised to just Jaws 3. The process of making the movie 2D left some strange blurring on the edge of the frame, as well as some shots with some really strange depth of field. In the same realm of weirdness, Dennis Quaid said in a 2015 interview that he was high on cocaine for every single frame of the movie, which might explain a little. One cool thing about the Jaws franchise, which I'm assuming is on purpose, is how a reference earlier in each film shows how each shark is gonna die. In Jaws, Hooper warns Brody about the air tank blowing up. In Jaws 2, Hendrix finds a power line which later electrocutes a shark. In this movie, an argument ensues about a British photographer using grenades. And in Jaws the Revenge, Jake is working on a transmitter that sends out a high frequency. I first heard about Jaws 3D through one of those 80s retrospective shows that basically described this famous scene as essentially a loaf of bread floating towards the command center, since she has next to no actual movement. A few viewings later, that still seems pretty accurate to me. Now this is a genuinely fun watch, and I'm sure to some extent that's due to it being an 80s disaster level movie. It has its moments of social commentary, whether you're talking about the money-driven corporate characters we get in Fitzroy's and Bouchard, or various environmental concerns that come up in passing. I love that Sheriff Brody's kids, Mike and Sean, get tossed into this one as adults, and one deals with a massive fear of water unless a lady is involved. There are callbacks to Amity Island and their goings-on as kids, but like most stuff, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of the story. My biggest complaint is that it takes until damn near the last 25 minutes for anything to really happen, but when it does, it hits the overdrive button. It almost gives you whiplash at points because there's so much going on in such a short time. Mike running around like crazy definitely backs up Dennis Quaid's story of cocaine use on set. Despite the pacing issue, the whole movie is goofy as hell, and the jump scares made me laugh so fucking hard. Of the shark movies I've reviewed, this is upper tier for me. Whether that be due to nostalgia or a better movie overall, Jaws 3 is downright jawsome. So what do you think? Suggestions for movies, trivial questions, comments, ratings, and an anthropomorphic Shamu would be appreciated. Thank you so very much for watching.